You're now listening to Boomsies with Dan O'Toole on the Bet Rivers Network.
It's Easter weekend. Only took 5 months to get to it, but it's Easter weekend. The candy is hidden. And Jesus is back. He's back, baby. Took the weekend off. He's like, I'm back. Pretty sure that's how the story goes. Heard it every year. Haven't been back for a story retelling at church in a while. I am very excited for this edition of Friday, because I am a massive Blue Jays fan, and I'm only a massive Blue Jays fan for one reason. That is the 1985 Blue Jays, in which they won the first ever pennant for the team. I lived and breathed baseball as a 10-year-old, and I fell in love with the game. And I'm so excited to have a member of that 85 Blue Jays team here on the show today. And that man is the one, the only, a member of the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, Ernie Whitt. 10-year-old Dan O'Toole is giddy at this moment. You are the 85 Blue Jays, my favorite team of all time. That team single-handedly made a country fall in love with baseball, so thank you.
Well, it was a great year for the Blue Jays. It was a little disappointing in the end, but,
I know you were up 3-1. Does it still haunt you to this day? You were 3-1 on the Royals.
Absolutely haunts me on a daily basis. No question about it. It's some great memories, though, and I look at it where, Dan, it's like we were up 3-1 on Kansas City. They come back and beat us. Kansas City goes up, and they're down 3-1 to St. Louis. Kansas City comes back and beats them. So I guess Kansas City was just a team of destiny that year.
I guess. Oh, when George Bell caught that ball and left. Oh, fell to his knees. Oh, see, it brings a tear to your eye. It brings a tear to my eye, too. Did you sense you were part of something special? Because baseball, not that it was new to the country, but I really think that the country found its love because of that team.
I think it was a growing period. I think every year since the inception, which was 77, you could see the team was building, and they were talking about it. The city was talking about it. And I think the organization was going about it the great way. We're going to build a contender through our farm system, in which they did. We had players in the early 80s that were playing in the big leagues that should have been playing in the minor leagues. But you could see the development of these players. And it seemed like every year we got better and better. In 1984, we had a pretty good, season. We just didn't have a closer at that time. We went into the season with a lot of excitement, thinking that we were going to be able to contend. The Tigers got off to a great start that year. I think they were 35-3 or something. But August, we were still there knocking on the door, but we just didn't have that individual that we could count on to come and close the game out. We lost a lot of games in the 8th and 9th inning that year.
I follow Jesse Barfield, your former teammate, on Twitter, and he looks fondly on his times playing at Exhibition Stadium. Do you feel the same? That was a weird place to play baseball. It was a football stadium.
No question. It was different. I felt bad for the fans, really. I mean, they're sitting in those aluminum seats when it's a nice cold April day or a brisk September day. At least as players, we were able to go into the dugout, and they had heaters in there so we could warm up a little bit before we went back out. But, anytime you have a chance to play in the big leagues, it doesn't matter what stadium you're in. You're playing at the highest level that you could possibly play. And it's, I try to look at all positive things too. People say that, well, the wind blew out to right field all the time. Well, I disagree with that. It did blow out at times, but it also blew in at times too. So, I mean, it was a even playing field for both teams.
Was it like playing in a parking lot because it did not look like it was easy on the joints? It looked like they just put carpet over cement.
I think if you look at the players that played on exhibition stadium, for 140, 150 games a year, they probably have had joint replacements. I know I'm one of them that's getting real close to doing it. The reason I haven't done it so far is just I've been very busy with baseball still.
It was also a team that had three of the greatest batting stances of all time. Tony Fernandez, who held the bat with his fingertips, Garth Orge in his stance, and you in your stance. I believe you lead, I don't know there's official stat for this, the majors in most home runs hit from one knee.
I don't know. I know no one's ever hired me as a hitting instructor. So like maybe that might tell you something right there. But it was
Did you ever hit a ball to the opposite field?
Of course.
Oh, because I always remember your home runs, you always just pulled them.
I think you could probably count on one hand how many home runs I hit the left field.
Dave Stieb, catching his stuff, watching that as a kid, was it as electric as it looked on TV?
Yes. Best right-handed pitcher I ever caught. No question about it. His slider was electric. His fastball moved all the time, and he threw a heavy sinker. He like I said, I mean, I've caught some good right-handed pitchers, but stuff-wise, he had probably the best stuff that I ever caught.
When you compare when you played to modern-day baseball, what differences do you see that you say, okay, I wish we had done this a bit differently, or did you like exactly the era you played in?
I don't think I would have changed a thing. I really don't, Dan. It's just, again, I look at things are different now. There's no question about it. But I don't think I would change anything. I enjoyed going out playing the game. I enjoyed the competition that we had played against. There was a lot of rivalry between certain teams that you played against. It was. I mean, that's you can't change it. We played and you can't change it. So just go back and cherish the moments that you did play.
And you must cherish the places you got to play in, like old Tiger Stadium. I wish so many times buddies are like, let's go on a road trip to Tiger Stadium. And that is the one thing I look back in life. I'm like, I wish I had done that.
Well, I guess I could say I did go back. I went there as a child. I remember getting on a bus and taking it downtown and watching games sitting in center field bleacher with my brother. I always cherished that place. I loved going into that town. I knew I was going to hit a couple balls in the upper deck there. And, it probably didn't travel that far because the upper deck hung out over the lower deck. So I was able to get into the first, couple of rows anyways, but it was always great playing in a place that you grew up loving and playing against the team that I grew up idolizing the Tigers. So just like a lot of kids in Toronto, they grew up idolizing the Blue Jays.
Did you ever hit one onto the roof there?
In batting practice.
In batting
practice, I hit one onto the roof. During the game, I think I hit the third deck once. Most of my home runs were just, fence scrapers. But they count the same.
Of all the old stadiums that are gone, which one do you look back and say they should have kept that?
Wow. I mean, I guess none of them right now because of the fact the way things are being played out, the modern era, and wider aisles to get up and down, bigger seats, concession stands. So I guess everyone has to remodel at some time. But I love Tiger Stadium. I love the older stadiums. I loved Oak County Stadium, Milwaukee. I love the Fenway Park, the old Fenway Park. Those were things that I grew up looking forward to playing and played in. And so I'll have those memories.
You talk about Fenway. Is that a park you mentioned, Old Fenway Park, where you walk in? Do you almost feel the ghosts of the past there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a place. That's why went through the Red Sox farm system, and my first big league game was at Fenway Park. My first hit in the big leagues was a home run at Fenway Park. So I have great memories for that place.
Your first hit was a home. You Junior Felixed it.
I did. And how about when we came back that year? We were down 10-0. I hit the grand slam home run off of Lee Smith, and I think Junior Felix hit the home run in the 11th inning to beat the Red Sox.
I watched that on YouTube last night. You guys went up 11.
Right with that? I don't know. That was a long time ago.
Oh man, you're putting me in a time machine here. The new rules in baseball, do you like them? Like the pitch clock, the wider bases, the no shift, were they needed?
I think you're going to see more action on the no shifts. I think that you're going to see more offense. I'm not really big on the bigger bases, but if they're doing it as a safety concern, then that's fine too. But the pitch clock, absolutely, I think they need to tweak it a little bit. Especially maybe later in the games as things get tight. You don't want a pitch count to affect the outcome of a ball game, especially in the 8th or ninth inning. So again, I think you could tweak it a little bit. I think it's good. It's getting the hitters in the batter's box. Most of the time, the pitcher's waiting on the hitters to get set in the batter's box. So I think that's going to help it along a little bit.
Which of your former teammates would have had a tough time with the pitch clock? Who took the longest?
On the pitching side of it, I don't know. They were all pretty good. They were all pretty quick because that's one thing that our managers talked about was just putting pressure on the hitter and not letting them think too much and figure out things. So we try to have action within 12 seconds after you receive the ball back. That was kind of one of our things that we talked about a lot, in our pre-meetings and stuff.
Yeah, get in a rhythm. What's the worst injury you received while catching? Off a foul ball? Was it off what happened, or a play at the plate?
Well, had a couple of surgeries after plays at the plate, but the one that I remember the most was in '87 when I slid into Paul Molitor at second base and I broke a couple of ribs with like 5 days, or I think it was actually 4 games to play. And that's when we went into the old Tiger Stadium and we lost our final 7 games. That was also the time that Tony Fernandez got hurt.
When he hurt his elbow.
Hurt his elbow. Bill Matlock took him out at second base, landed on that wooden form around second base there at Exhibition Stadium. Knocked him out the last 10 games. And then I was knocked out with the 3-game series coming against Detroit, where I'd always done well there at Tiger Stadium. And we lost the final 7 games of the season, the last 3 against the Tigers.
How violent was the collision where you broke some ribs?
I just, I slid in and kind of popped up, and I popped up right into his ribs. There was nothing, dirty about it in any way. It's just a freak thing that happened, and, I was going in hard to break up a double play.
Okay. I get it. Old school baseball. That's what you got to do.
That's the way it was played back then.
Did you guys despise the Tigers? Because as a Jays fan, I knew every single player in that lineup, top to bottom. I knew all the bench players on the Tigers. Didn't know that for any other team, and I hated every one of them.
I would never say we despised them. It was a great rivalry that we had between Toronto and Detroit. The proximity of both cities you could drive to with, a 3.5-hour drive. You're at stadium to stadium. So it was a great rivalry that you had, and the fans really got into it back then, and we played each other. I think we played each other quite a bit. That we didn't have that many teams in the league, I believe. I think there's only 2 divisions at that time.
That's right. What's the strangest thing you've seen a teammate eat during a game? Because the snacks have come a long way. I've gone into a major league clubhouse, and the snacks now are top notch. I assume they weren't that great back when you played.
No, we'd go back in and grab a hot dog out of the kitchen. I mean, we didn't have any of these protein bars and stuff like that. We had bubble gum, we had sunflower seeds, and guys chewed tobacco back then too. So I mean, it was a lot different than what it is now.
Well, there's protein in a hot dog. That's kind of like a protein bar.
Yeah, but you think about it during the course. Well, the fans are eating hot dogs, so why shouldn't the players?
Let's get into the World Baseball Classic. Is it just my view of this year's event that it got newfound acceptance and love from everyone that maybe doubted it before?
I think it did a tremendous job marketing itself this year. I think one of the reasons why the players were up and was wanting to play in it. I know the U.S. promoted it a lot. You get your marquee players like a Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, a Kyle Schwarber, who are going on air saying they can't wait to play in it. And then during the course of it, they're loving it. And during the end of it, that's all they talked about. They can't wait for the next one. So I think the marketing of it was outstanding. I think it shows that there can be passion in the game. There can be pride in the game, and you're playing for your country. So I think it keeps on building. I'm just hoping that in 2026 we'll have more Canadians that are willing to play in it.
Speaking of Canadians, from when you arrived in Canada to play for the Jays to now, how have you seen the talent for baseball with Canadian-born players improve?
I think it's improved tremendously. I think a lot of the players are now going, after they're done with their high school, they're going on to U.S. colleges where they have good baseball programs, and they are expanding and getting better with better baseball programs, and they're playing more. And I just think that the knowledge of the game, that the inner things that go on during the course of the game, the players are understanding it and accepting it and executing it. So I think the game itself with the Canadian players has grown a lot. And I think a lot of it has to do too with, the grassroots programs that are going on in Canada. I think it's a very positive thing.
Greatest Canadian baseball player of all time. That's got to go to Fergie, right? Fergie Jenkins?
Absolutely. I mean,
Is Joey Votto, is he getting close?
He's getting close. The last couple of years he's had injuries, but how can you cannot deny him with you put his stats there? It's pretty good, but there's an awful lot of other good ball players too. You look at Larry Walker, look at Justin Morneau. I don't want to forget anyone. Who am I forgetting? I mean, it's like there's a lot of good Canadian ball players.
Larry Walker, yeah, he doesn't get the credit he deserves because he played in Colorado. You can't take that away from someone just because he played on a team. What is he supposed to get traded to somewhere else and okay, I can play well here too?
I'm telling you, his knowledge of baseball is so good. I mean, I love having him on my staff. He's tremendous. The kids look up to him. Even the older players, they talk to him. We talk baseball. We talk situations. We talk. Is this pitcher tipping his pitches? Does he get into patterns? That helps our hitters. I mean, he's a quiet dictionary of baseball.
That's a very good statement because that's what I've heard about him as well. You talk about tipping pitches. How often did that happen in your day? If a guy's on second, can you get the sign to the hitter?
Most of the time, what you're doing is you're tipping locations more than anything. If the catcher moves too early, He moves away from a right-hander. I mean, you can tip that pretty easily, and if you know that the ball is going to be, you split the plate in half. So if you know the ball is going to be on the outer part of the plate, you're cheating to the outer part of the plate, and vice versa. If the ball's going to be in the inner half, you cheat to the inner half. So, and believe me, that helps. I mean, we did it in the '80s all the time. We would try to take the advantage of the opposing team.
When you look back at your playing days, who was the hardest pitcher to catch on your staff?
Probably Dwayne Ward.
Yeah.
I would say he was he threw a very heavy ball. He threw hard, and a lot of times it wasn't where it was supposed to be. So you're kind of on skates a little bit. He had a real good career with a great arm, and but I would say overall at that level he was probably one of the better pitchers or toughest pitchers to catch.
Did you ever have to catch a knuckleballer?
Phil Necro, I think he came over for a few months with us in Toronto, so he was the only one really that I caught at the big league level.
Did you have to change your glove, wear one of those weird knuckleballer gloves?
No, I just went to an older glove that was more broken in, a little flimsy, and again, it's like you're not receiving the ball, you're kind of like snatching the ball because you just once you get uptight, your movement are just not the same. So you just try to stay as relaxed as possible, and just when it gets into that hitting area, you just go and you try to snag it.
It must not have been fun though to know you're going to catch him because you're like, oh, this is going to be a tough day.
Oh, I mean, a knuckleballer can make the hitter look foolish. We also make the catcher look foolish. But again, that's the purpose of the knuckleball is so the hitter doesn't hit it. But you try to, as a catcher, you try to put some part of your body on it anyways to keep it in front.
As a catcher, do you form a different relationship with umps than any other player? You must.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, you're there working together, and that's the thing. You try to have a good working relationship, and you carry on a civil conversation with them. And that's what I've always tried to teach the catchers that I've been working with is, hey, you guys have to build a relationship with the umpires. I says because if you get off on the wrong foot with them, they're going to screw you, and they will screw your pitcher. And it's just human nature that they do hold grudges. I don't care what anyone says; they hold grudges. Their job is to call balls and strikes. They're human. They're gonna miss. They're gonna miss pitches. So again, you just talk to them. But if you have a pitcher out there that is pretty consistent throwing to one side of the plate, it's pretty easy for the umpire to call, and you keep talking to them like saying and try to inch out an inch at a time farther off the plate. And again, if you're receiving it properly, everyone thinks that it is a strike, that it should be a strike or it is a strike. And the umpires usually will start giving in a little bit.
You must have been a part-time psychologist because I'm sure you had pitchers on your staff where they saw who was going to be the home plate ump, and you're like, "This guy hates me. I'm not going to get a single call." And you'd be saying, "Okay, let's put that out of our minds."
Dan, it's amazing that's so true, though. I mean, if I have a pitcher that I know can dominate one side of the plate, and I have an umpire working behind me that doesn't like calling strikes on that side of the plate, it's a challenge for you that day. I mean, you have to continue to make a conversation with the umpire and saying, look, we're going to try to work this outside part of the plate. This pitcher here is pretty good at it. Just give it a little extra look if you would. I mean, you start that conversation like that just to give him a heads up and almost like, hey, we're going to go at this spot. Just give us a little extra look if you would.
Can you name one single player that you played against on an opposing team where you're like, this is the greatest athlete I've ever seen in my life, and where you were in awe of them? You, a fellow pro.
One of them would be George Brett. I thought that he was, especially I'm trying to think what year it was, maybe 86 or maybe it was 87. We just couldn't get him out, and he was really locked in that year. But he was good. Kirby Puckett was outstanding. I grew up as an Al Kaline fan, who I thought was tremendous. So I mean, there's I played against a lot. I mean, you look at all the Yankee games that we played and the players that we played against that played for the Yankees. There's an awful lot of them. The same with Baltimore. Cal Ripken Jr., Eddie Murray.
Eddie Murray. He looked like the grumpiest human on earth, was he?
Oh, Mr. Happy. Yeah. Yeah, he didn't want to carry on a conversation very often, but as a ball player, he was pretty damn good.
Wait, that was his actual nickname, Mr. Happy?
Yeah, that's what I called him.
No, I love it. Whenever you mention George Brett, and whenever I hear the name George Brett, I think of the Pine Tar and the Pine Tar incident.
Yeah.
Pine Tar. You lived in the Pine Tar era. As a kid, I went from store to store trying to find Pine Tar, but you couldn't find it if you're a part of the general public.
Yeah, it's true. Now they have the spray cans and they've got the stick, I guess, that relates to pine tar. But
I know game used bats aren't the same anymore. I've got some game used bats up there. I've got a Garth Orge game used, and it's the Pine Tar is just everywhere on it. I'm like, this is what baseball's all about.
yeah, there's a few guys out there that still use it. You can always tell if you look at their shoulder, you'll see the pine tar mark on their shoulder. That's where they rest their bat. Of course, it gets sticky, and the clubhouse guys love that.
I'm just going to move this picture here because in behind this picture is I don't know if you can see that. That's Garth Orge, a giant Garth Orge card. Can I get some love for Garth Orge, who I always look to him as my go-to favorite player because in my mind, I'm like, this guy doesn't have the most talent, but he works his tail off and he carved out a pretty good career. And he also had the weirdest batting stance I've ever seen in my life.
Dan, it's amazing we're talking about Garth. He was my roommate in the minor leagues.
Oh.
That's when, you have roommates in the minor leagues. Garth was my roommate. So we have a pretty good history together. And you're right. He was a blue collar kid that worked hard. Wasn't blessed with all the talent in the world, but he worked and made himself into a real good ball player. And the way that Bobby Cox used him with him and Rance Mullinex platooning, it was good. And he's got a few years in the big leagues.
But that caused a problem because then I had a dislike for Rance because I'm like, Rance is playing today. Where's Garth?
Well, it worked out for the team, and that's the way you look at it as a ball player. You're getting an opportunity to play. You know when you're going to play. And, like I said, Garth was a red ass, and he played hard, and all he wanted to do was win. And that's what I think the teams that we had in the early 80s into the mid 80s were teams that were hard-nosed players, and we just wanted to win the game, do whatever it takes to win a ball game.
Ernie, I've got to thank you for the time you spent with us here. Like I said, huge fan. 85 Jays are why I love baseball, and you are a huge part of that. So thanks for coming on with us today.
Thank you, Dan. All the best to you.
Ernie. So now when you get a hot dog at the game, say, I'm just having my protein bar. This stick of meat. Sure, if you get it at a Blue Jays game, it will be barely cooked. And the bun will be stale. But you're having a dog at the game. Here's a tip. Get a hot dog outside the stadium. Much better. The exhaust fumes add to the flavor. Better condiments because inside you get the ketchup by the pump and the mustard by the pump. That's all you got. Get your dog outside and they try to take it from you, just put that dog down your pants. You got a fresh hot dog from your pants. Now go enjoy Easter or play this episode at the Easter dinner table. I think the family will enjoy it, and you'll start a new tradition. Bye.
Welcome to Boomsies with Dan O'Toole. Live from Orono in the heart of Ontario. Oh, baby, Boomsies.
Thanks for listening to Boomsies.